You ever pour your whole self into someone, every hour, every dollar, every ounce of energy, and somehow it still wasn't enough? Yeah, most guys have been there. And here's the part that stings. None of that effort actually bought you what you were chasing, because women's loyalty doesn't run on the same fuel most men think it does. You probably grew up believing that if you just give enough and sacrifice enough and prove yourself enough, she'd never walk away. But that's not how this works. The harder you try to earn it, the quicker it slips through your fingers. So what's really going on here? It comes down to one truth that flips everything upside down. She isn't loyal to what you do for her. She's loyal to how you make her feel inside. Sounds small, I know, but once this clicks, your whole approach to relationships changes forever. From day one, most guys are fed the same garbage. Be the nice guy, be supportive, do more, give more. So they go all in with time and cash and emotional energy, hoping that's the secret formula. At first, it looks like it's working because she likes the gestures and enjoys the attention and benefits from the effort. But here's where it gets dangerous. Gratitude is not the same thing as loyalty, and being comfortable is not the same thing as wanting someone. Here's the first thing you need to get. Women bond to emotional experiences, not to effort. It isn't about the volume of what you do. It's about the feeling she gets when she's around you. You could hand her the world on a platter and be attentive and caring and present, but if that emotional spark dies, the attachment dies with it. Look around. Some guys barely lift a finger and women are hooked on them while other dudes are breaking their backs and still getting replaced. That's not coincidence. That's psychology. Her loyalty is wired to emotional connection, not to some scoreboard of good deeds. Now here's the part that changes the game. She's loyal to how you make her feel about herself, not to your consistency or your sacrifices. Loyalty isn't something you rack up through actions. It's something you embody through identity. The second you start overgiving to lock her down, you're screaming that you're terrified of losing her, and terror destroys attraction. That fear turns into desperation real fast. So think about what you're actually saying when you're constantly proving your worth. You're saying you don't believe you're enough on your own. Women feel that desperation even when you never say it out loud, and once they sense it, the attraction starts dying. This is the trap. Guys think doing more will glue her to them, but all that proving just breeds insecurity. And insecurity is what makes her leave. And here's something a lot of men won't admit. She doesn't walk out because you're a bad guy. She walks out because you got emotionally soft. When you start reacting instead of leading, when you chase validation instead of holding your ground, when you over-explain every little thing instead of standing firm, that's when loyalty starts eroding. It doesn't happen in a day, but it happens. I've watched it too many times. A guy who used to be solid and confident and grounded slowly turns into someone who needs constant reassurance, always asking if everything's okay, apologizing for nothing, needing her to tell him he's good enough. And as that shift happens, she drifts. It's not that she stopped caring. The emotional dynamic changed. She might still like him as a person, but the loyalty, that's already gone. Let's talk about identity, because this is the piece most men completely miss. She isn't loyal to your personality, and she isn't loyal to your effort. She's loyal to your identity. That might sound like splitting hairs, but it's the reason some men hold loyalty without trying, while others grind themselves to dust and still get left behind. When your identity is rock solid and you know exactly who you are and what you stand for, your actions matter less. A man who walks away from disrespect and doesn't crumble when things get hard and doesn't beg for attention radiates internal value, and that value is magnetic. It pulls her in and keeps her there. Think about the guy who doesn't chase validation and isn't always around and doesn't say sorry for things he didn't do. Those moves speak strength, and strength is what earns loyalty. On the flip side, a man who's always seeking approval and desperate for reassurance and emotionally dependent on her is waving a flag of weakness, and women don't stay loyal to weakness. That's a hard pill. A lot of guys think kindness plus giving plus doing everything right equals loyalty. But loyalty isn't earned by giving more. It's inspired by who you are. Strong identity means loyalty follows. Weak identity means no amount of hustle will make her stay. So how do you build that identity? It starts with self-respect. When you respect yourself and your boundaries and your values, you naturally attract people who respect you back. Self-respect is the bedrock of loyalty, and without it, nothing else matters. Women stay loyal to men who know who they are and who have a direction, and who can stand their ground without needing someone to pat them on the back. And this doesn't mean being cold or shutting down. It's not about being emotionally dead. It's about being emotionally self-sufficient, and knowing your value doesn't depend on how much you give or how much she validates you. When you've got that internal strength, loyalty flows toward you without you chasing it. Another piece most guys confuse is obligation versus loyalty. And there's a huge difference here. A woman can feel obligated to you. She might appreciate you and feel comfortable and even feel like she owes you for everything you've done. But that is not loyalty. Obligation is a mental ledger where she's keeping score. Loyalty is deeper. It's emotional. It's about the connection she feels and the respect she holds for you. When she stays out of obligation, she's weighing what you gave against what she got. But when she stays out of loyalty, there's no scorecard. She stays because of who you are, not what you provided. That's why overgiving backfires. Guys think more gifts will lock her in, but all they're doing is building obligation. And obligation is fragile because it's built on transactions. Loyalty, on the other hand, is stable. It's built on respect and emotional alignment and identity. When she feels emotionally connected to who you are, she stays for the bond, not the benefits. And that's the loyalty that lasts. Let's talk about momentum because this matters more than people realize. Women don't stay loyal to your past. They stay loyal to your present and your future. When a man is moving and growing and evolving and chasing new goals, she feels that energy, and she's drawn into his forward motion. But when he stops, when he gets comfortable and settles in and stops challenging himself, her emotional alignment starts fading. Attraction isn't about nostalgia, and it's not about who you used to be. It's about who you are right now and where you're heading. That's why stagnation kills relationships without anyone noticing. A guy thinks comfort means security, but if he stops growing, she starts detaching emotionally. How many relationships have you seen fall apart because the man stopped pursuing something? He got too comfortable and stopped pushing himself, and the woman who once looked at him with admiration started seeing him differently. The spark didn't die from some big fight. It died because he stopped doing anything at all, stopped growing, and with that her loyalty faded. Comfort won't keep her, but growth will. When you're moving forward and chasing excellence and constantly learning and challenging yourself, she feels aligned with you. But when you stop and lose direction, the connection weakens. And here's something critical. How you handle losing matters as much as how you handle winning. Women are loyal to men who can take a hit and stay standing. When things go sideways and conflict shows up and emotions spike, do you stay grounded or do you fall apart? A man who faces setbacks without losing himself and without reacting emotionally becomes irreplaceable. But most men respond to loss in ways that push her away. They panic and react and can't handle it, and in that panic they lose themselves. But the man who can face loss with dignity and say, "I care, but I won't beg," that man becomes unforgettable. Women aren't just loyal to your wins, they're loyal to your emotional stability. They're loyal to the man who stays grounded no matter what. When you can hold your sense of self through challenges, you become someone she can't easily walk away from. Now let's get into something most men don't see coming: emotional tests. Women don't sit around planning these things, but they happen, and it's subtle. She pulls back a little and creates some distance and gets a little colder. Not because she wants to leave, but because she wants to see who you are when she's not handing you reassurance. This is where most guys crash and burn. They see that distance as a threat and panic and chase and over-explain and do everything to close the gap. And in doing that, they only push her further. When she pulls back emotionally, she's not trying to exit. She's testing your reaction. If you chase and get desperate and explain yourself into the ground, you fail. But if you stay centered and calm and present without clinging, her loyalty deepens. This is where emotional restraint becomes your strongest weapon. It's not about being cold, it's about not needing her validation to know your worth. When you don't react emotionally and don't chase and don't panic, you show her you're stable, and that emotional mastery is rare and incredibly attractive. When you can stay grounded no matter how much she pulls away, you communicate strength, and strength makes a man irreplaceable. This doesn't mean she wants someone emotionally unavailable. She wants someone who keeps his center no matter what's happening around him. Women are loyal to men who can face conflict and uncertainty and challenge without losing themselves, and that stability, especially during emotional tests, is what separates you from every other guy. Let's talk about what women are not loyal to, because this is where a lot of guys crash. She is not loyal to over-availability, and she is not loyal to emotional dependency or people-pleasing or self-sacrifice with no boundaries. Those things feel safe, but safety without attraction turns into indifference, and indifference is the beginning of the end. Good men make the mistake of thinking that being always available and always accommodating and constantly sacrificing will create loyalty, but what that actually signals is a lack of place. She's not attracted to a man with no life and no boundaries and no sense of self. When you have no boundaries and you're always around and overly accommodating, you're showing her you have no self-respect, and if there's no self, there's nothing for her to be loyal to. Loyalty is built on respect, self-respect, and mutual respect. When a man knows who he is and values himself, he becomes someone who inspires loyalty. Now let's hit the biggest mistake: confusing love with loyalty. A lot of men think if they love her enough and they're kind enough and they treat her well, she'll stay loyal, but that's wrong. Love is emotional. It's feelings and connection and attraction. Loyalty is built on respect, admiration and value, and self-worth. She can love you deeply and still walk away if she doesn't respect you. Love moves with emotions and circumstances, but respect is steady. It's the foundation. Respect doesn't come from what you do for her. It comes from how you value yourself. When she respects you, that respect stays even when love feels distant, but if she doesn't respect you, no amount of love will keep her loyal. That's why women often stay with men they respect even when the romantic spark dims. Respect holds things together when it gets hard. When she respects you, she doesn't feel the need to leave even if the intensity isn't what it used to be. She stays because of the foundation you built. But when a man starts overgiving and overpleasing and losing himself, the respect fades, and when respect fades, loyalty follows. Being too good and too available and too accommodating backfires. It signals weakness and low self-worth, and a man who needs validation to survive. Women don't stay loyal to men who need them to feel worthy. They stay loyal to men who are already grounded in their own value. So what is she actually loyal to? Emotional strength and self-respect and direction and identity. She's loyal to how she feels in your presence, not what you do for her. It's about the power of your presence, not your performance. That emotional strength and self-respect and sense of self is what inspires loyalty. And yeah, this might sound harsh, but it's reality. If you want her to stay loyal, stop trying to prove yourself, and stop trying to earn it through effort and sacrifice. Focus on building a strong sense of self, and focus on your growth and your identity and your emotional mastery. When you do that, loyalty becomes effortless. This isn't manipulation, and it's not about being cold. It's about embodying strength and having boundaries and respecting yourself. It's about not needing her approval because you already know your value. When you stop seeking her validation and stop giving endlessly to prove your worth, you start becoming the kind of man who naturally inspires loyalty. Here's the final truth. Female loyalty isn't about fairness or what you deserve. It's primal psychology running beneath conscious thought. You can fight it and call it unfair and wish it were different, but it won't change anything. Understanding it lets you navigate with wisdom instead of confusion. She's loyal to strength, not sacrifice, to presence, not performance, to who you are, not what you do. The more you try to earn loyalty by giving, the less you'll get. The more you embody strength and respect and self-worth, the more she is naturally drawn to you. This shift is everything. It's about who you're becoming, not what you're doing. When you stop chasing and stop overgiving and start living from your value, everything changes. She listens more and respects you more and feels more connected. Loyalty becomes the natural result of the strength and self-respect you radiate. So if this gave you some clarity on building real loyalty, hit that like button and subscribe and check out the other videos for more on psychology and relationships. These are the truths most people are scared to say out loud, but they're the ones that'll change how you approach love and loyalty for good.